Akil Bashir and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. This week, we'll be talking about the O.J. Simpson case, actually, and the actual legacy of actually O.J. Simpson. And I think most of us actually know O.J. Simpson. We either in his pre murder trial life and post murder trial life. I think that earlier on, I think that he was obviously considered to be a somewhat of a darling, so to speak, as far as being a football player who I think originally came out of Northern California, went to a junior college, ultimately went to USC as a football player, where he actually was actually a great running back, actually winning the Heisman Trophy, and ultimately being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Although the Buffalo Bills was not a very good team during the time that he played there, but he actually was, for many of the years that he played, the best running back actually in the league, actually holding the single season rushing record for a very long time until it was ultimately broken by Eric Dickerson at some point. But again, as we discussed a little bit about, and then actually after that point, he actually had a very stellar after football life career as a broadcaster. He had actually he was an actor in several movies. One, probably most of them were comedic type of movies. One being I think the Naked Gun series and some other shows that he actually was in, during his time period as an actor. He was going back to, he was one of the first athletes who had major success in endorsements. In fact, he actually did the what is called the what was it, the Hertz rent a car. He was the Hertz rent a car spokesman for a very long period of time as well. So OJ actually, and then he was, and then again, going back to his broadcasting career, he was considered, one of the, he was actually a relatively good sports broadcaster as well. And then we know that at some point in time, for many of us that remember, the infamous, the y'all was because even said, the case of People versus O.J. Simpson, which was there was an allegation that he had actually killed his wife, and a friend of hers or acquaintance by the name of Ron Goldman. The allegation was that he actually went to the location and actually, killed two people, both his ex-wife Nicole and the mother of his children, as well as I think his name is Mark Goldman. He actually went to trial. That is considered to be the trial of the century. He was obviously, defended by what is known now as the Dream Team that included Robert Shapiro, Johnny Cochran, the famous F. Lee Bailey, Carl Douglas, several really good attorneys that defended him in the case. It was a very, very long trial. The prosecutors in that case was Marsha Clark and Christopher Darden were the main prosecutors in the case. and ultimately, O.J. Simpson was found, not guilty in that case, and it sparked some serious divisions in this country. A lot of it had to do with race. A lot of it had to do with race, and a lot of it had to do with the issues that people were concerned about with regards to domestic violence. It changed. I think the case actually changed a lot of things for American justice. It exposed a lot of issues. It changed the way that domestic violence laws were actually changed. I mean, literally, domestic violence laws were changed throughout the country. So there was a lot that came out of this O.J. Simpson case. Now, of course, the issue and the joke is that O.J. Simpson was actually guilty, and I think one of the things that we're going to do as we begin talking about the case is, was he guilty, right? And so, was he guilty?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, to me at the time, and I'll just be on. I mean, of course, I'm a criminal defense attorney now, but at the time, I was actually a police officer when the O.J. Simpson case actually the verdict during the case and that actual verdict. And there's a couple of things that I mean, I don't know if a lot of people really pay close attention, to the case.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's a few things that's obvious. One of the things that always got me was the detective.
Yeah.
And the detective that actually, when he drew, his blood was drawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they drew his blood. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a long time, so I may be shaky on some of my recollection of some of the issues. But I believe his blood was drawn at the LAPD station, and I believe they actually have a way to take. Typically, what happens is when a police officer. Which the police officer would not have been the person who took his blood, but obviously they would have had some sort of technician or something like that, or medical person that would have taken his blood. Mm-hmm. However, what happened is that he did not take that immediately and check it into evidence, right?
Yeah.
What he did, this is a detective, and if you want to blame anybody for whatever happened, you got to blame the LAPD.
Correct.
If you're going to be mad at somebody, because they really made some really crazy mistakes, and I hadn't seen it before, and I've never seen it since. You take his blood, and you put it in your pocket.
Correct.
You go back to the scene, to his home and the scene of the crime, with a suspect's blood in a vial.
In a vial, yeah.
That's where you begin. Now, you don't have to go to the police academy. You don't have to be an expert. You know that there's a problem with that.
Correct.
To go back to the scene with the blood. Then even after you leave the scene, you don't go back to the lab. You actually take the blood home. Mm-hmm. Then you take it and put it in your refrigerator. Right?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Right?
Big problem.
Then there's an issue with the blood in the vial. They're saying that there is, at least to some degree, it's not the same amount when you took it as when you brought it back. Now, there's one that could argue that the fact that he was set up would not make much sense, because apparently there's a lot of blood. Mm-hmm. But that's not a good look, right? It doesn't look good.
Correct.
Right? If you're really going to be a fair, impartial juror and using your common sense, that's problematic, right? Another thing that tended to be very problematic for me is they're experts. Trial is theater. Right? It really is. It's theater. I mean, you can, you know, I don't care what law school you go to and how great of a lawyer you are. If you're going to be a trial lawyer, you got to have some theatrics, and that includes your experts. The experts for the people, from what I recall, and I didn't watch the whole trial, was not very compelling to me. The expert for O.J. Simpson was great.
Yeah.
In his explanation. You can't talk to jurors like they're your colleagues. You have to talk to jurors in a way in which they understand it. And I believe, I cannot remember the name of the expert for the O.J. Simpson's case, and I don't want to say his name because I may have him wrong, mixed up with the other one. But one of the things that always caught my attention that really got me is that he is the sock. And what he demonstrated was that the way that the socks were found is that the blood was on one side and it went all the way to the other side. The point he was trying to make is that if you have socks on and the blood gets on your sock and your leg is in it, it's not going to go from one side to the other. Right. So what does that look like?
That look like
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
It's everything. It just really look bad.
Correct.
And then the craziest thing was Mark Furman.
Yeah, Mark Furman.
I mean, when this is what I was thinking. I'm a neutral for the most part. I'm neutral in this. When F. Lee Bailey asked him, "Have you ever used the N-word?"
Yeah.
All he needed to say was, "I'm sure I probably have. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm sure somewhere I had." You know what I'm saying? I had a black partner when I was on patrol. We used to. I don't know. I'm sure I did, or I don't remember. But he says no. Then he says, "Well, I'm going," and then he doubled down on it when he asked him again. Then they play the infamous tapes where he goes on the N-word tirade.
Yeah.
So he talks about the N-word. He talks about how they bleed out. I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, I know it was drama and somebody was writing a book, but that's a bad look, right? Because now you just perjured yourself, right? Then add accident to injury as you go. Now you found the glove. Nobody was with you. Nobody was around you, but you found the infamous glove. Now you don't put yourself in a position where you've got to take the fifth.
Yeah.
So now you got the lead detective in a murder case taking the fifth.
Wow.
It was a ultimate disaster.
Correct.
And my boy Christopher Darden in them gloves. You never ask a question. This is the secret.
Yeah.
You never ask a question unless you know what the answer is. You never do that. People always talk about ask this question. If you don't know what the answer is, you don't do it.
Yeah.
In fact, I was told that they were bullying. They were, they kind of touted him into doing certain things. Like they would mess with him.
Yeah.
That's what you hear. So then he says he wanted him to try on the gloves.
Big no.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously he put on. What do you call it?
Yeah, latex gloves.
Latex gloves.
Yeah.
And so you should have had him to try on the gloves before you ever said it. If you don't know what it's going to look like, you never do that. But he did it. And OJ's an actor. Now Johnny Cochran said he was a bad actor, but OJ, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean he could act. So then you're going to ask someone to put on. What do you think he was going to do? He was going to you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's a bad look. It was absolutely. It's not one of the things. It wasn't the trial of the century. It was a terrible trial going bad on television.
Correct.
Right. If you want to see a good prosecution, that was the worst one to watch. You see what I'm saying? So then then the question is, how did he end up being found not guilty? Well, based upon the way they presented the evidence,
Yeah.
it's not too far fetched.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The way that they did it, it was terrible. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'd never seen that. I mean, have you ever seen that? What would you think?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it was terrible. So I know that you have comedian. I mean, then he did all these other crazy things about if I did it, this is the way I would have done it, and
Yeah.
they're saying that whatever. Um, Now legally, I believe he's not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, and that's just the prosecution's fault. I really believe that does race matter in a jury? Of course it does. If I said it didn't, then I would be telling a lie because we
Yeah.
know that it does.
Exactly.
But I think that it's not unreasonable under the circumstances because they're not supposed to be watching television. Jurors, they were sequestered.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not watching and all this other stuff because there's things that bias you as
Yeah.
a juror. And I'm sure that maybe if they would have seen some of the things that everybody else was looking at, maybe they would have been contaminated and maybe it would have been different. But these are jurors that do not consider anything other than what is actually in that courtroom if you're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the system didn't fail. Honestly, the system worked.
Yeah.
What failed was the LAPD and the prosecution.
Right.
They just really just dropped the ball. I don't, there's no way. I mean, that was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was just absolutely a S show.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, can you imagine being in a trial? I could never imagine. I've done a lot of criminal trials and having the lead detective take the fifth.
Yeah. That's bad.
I would look at my client and say, "We good,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah.
Because I was the lead detective. Okay, he has no credibility.
None whatsoever.
So the glove means nothing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was a terrible trial. So legally, for sure, not guilty. Now, after he does all these other things. If I did it, this is how I would have done it. Then then they have the guy that's supposed to have been Nicole's handyman that at some point in time admitted
Mm-hmm.
to being doing it.
Yeah.
But they didn't really give him any credit because they thought that he was crazy.
Yeah.
Then you had had him saying, I don't know if it was to make money, but my personal opinion is that because that's another thing when you do trials and you give theories. Whatever theory, everybody has a theory of a case. And you're taught different people do different things, but I think the best thing is when you do a trial, because you never know how a trial is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give the jury a theory and only really one theory. And if there's a way, if you're not sure, then you want to give them some wiggle room.
Yeah.
So what she says is he did it. He did it by himself, and he did it alone. Right.
Mm.
So now you've done you got another problem. What if there is evidence that there was more than one person?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Correct.
That begins to be another problem. But I can say that my personal opinion, to the extent that you may think that realistically he was involved one way or another, it definitely didn't happen based upon the way that the prosecution said it happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there was a timeline issue. You know what I mean?
Mm.
In other words, and then you had the Bronco chase.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That there's a jury instruction about the fleeing. That the fleeing can be considered a consciousness of guilt, right? That's
Yeah.
a jury instruction. I don't really recall whether they gave that jury instruction or not, but that was one as well.
Yeah.
You know.
What I always had a problem with, like you say, all the evidence and stuff like that was tampered with. I mean, if you have an open and shut case, then why would you go and plant, evidence? And then the other thing was the fact was there was two victims. I mean, and when you capture him, there's no physical marks or lacerations on him because I would think that there was a fight that was put up. But then when he was caught, I don't recall them saying anything like, you have two individuals. Somebody is going to attack somebody, trying to keep them off of them. There has to be some type of physical evidence or
Is
something
he
like
on?
that. So,
Okay.
so I'm not.
Oh, cut on
Oh,
his
he
hand.
had a cut
Yeah.
on his hand. Yeah, so it's like, I think there would have been more to it, and so that kind of threw me off. But
Right.
like I say, all of the tampering with the evidence, and like you say, once that lead detective took that fifth, that was like game over to me
Yeah.
because you taking someone who actually takes the lead on the case and now he can't answer questions. That to me tells me a whole lot. I mean, looking back, if I was sitting on the jury, of course that was reasonable doubt. Period. And of course, afterwards, you had the book that came out that, it didn't want to come out, but then they finally end up publishing it,
Right.
for the Goldman family and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get the funds and the proceeds from that. But even that, I mean, even that, I think it was a money move.
For him?
Yeah, but ultimately,
Oh.
it was a money move probably for him, but he couldn't get the money from that. So they used it later on. The Goldman family actually published that later on, in order to get the proceeds because he didn't have the money,
Right.
and they end up publishing it. But they publish it. It says if I had done it or something like that, but they put it in big bold right. I did it,
Right.
you know, and I think that they got the proceeds, ultimately from all of that.
Yeah.
But of course, when he did it, I believe that it was his intention, of course, to get the money because you remember he was really, going after, money factor after that point because, the stuff with his memorabilia and then him getting caught up with the crime and stuff like that. So I know he was struggling for money. But, I just think there was too many what ifs. There was what ifs, and so if I was sitting on the jury, I probably would have voted not guilty as well. Just the fact that all the stuff that the police had did at that particular time, and the prosecution, like I said, like you said, they put on the defense they put on a case, a
Yeah, I mean,
decent case.
yeah, they like. I mean, like I said, you had the best of the best. You had Barry Scheck, who was a DNA expert. DNA was ultimately not really as big, obviously, as it is now, but he was great. He did a great job of cross examination. You had F. Lee Bailey, who we know F. Lee Bailey is famous, 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 right? You have Johnny Cochran, who basically, is one of the best that's ever done it. You had Carl Douglas, who really didn't do a lot of cross examination, but he's just a brilliant mind. And then you had what's the name of the professor from Harvard that was actually on staff that was going? I can't think of his name. I can see his face, but I can't think of his name. Can't think of his name. But anyway, but you had all these great legal minds, and it was, they dotted all their I's, they crossed all their T's, and, they did what they were supposed to do, as defense counsel. They
Yeah.
did a great job. What's crazy about it is, LAPD has a very huge district attorney office. And this is not a stab at Christopher Darden, and this is not a stab at Marshall Clark. But if I was a district attorney because I'm originally from Tennessee. In Tennessee, such a case, probably the DA himself would have probably tried the case.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't know really I do cases in L.A. and deal with DAs in L.A. And the levels of experience and trial and professionalism varies. If I was a district attorney, I would have made sure that I would have gotten the best of the office because I'm sure they have brilliant, great lawyers on the DA's office.
Yeah.
The scuttlebutt is and I don't want to be a rumor mill, is that basically it was not attractive to people in the DA's office, and some of it had to do with there were officers who had a reputation, and that exists even now. I do know that in some cases, especially like some of these gang cases and stuff like that, there's some officers that are known to be, you know,
Yeah.
you see what I'm
I
saying?
got you.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times when those individuals are involved, it's easier to get them to resolve it. Or sometimes they don't even want those officers even to be in the courtroom.
Hmm.
So, that's where you begin, is knowing that it's one of those cases that was probably problematic before it ever really got started. And it was obviously some huge political issues going on, because you are talking about, there's no, I don't think there's very, if I, just in my memory, in my 50 some odd years of living, I'm not going to tell you exactly how old I am, but that's one of the biggest falls from grace that I've ever seen. Because I don't think that people understand how huge, especially now, how huge O.J. Simpson was.
Yeah.
This dude was just
It
huge.
was.
Actually, when I was a kid, they had O.J. Simpson action figures.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I had O.J. Simpson. There was O.J. Simpson. I mean, he was just a
Cereal
huge,
box.
huge, huge, huge star. He was extremely charismatic.
Hmm.
He was doing like I said, he was one of he was the first athlete that had such big endorsements. You know what I mean? Like with
Hmm.
Hertz.
Yeah.
Go OJ. You know what
Exactly.
I
I
mean? I
remember that.
mean, just huge, man. And to see him fall that far and that quickly is just, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Then you had the issue, the other issue of the social issue that came out of it, because ultimately it became even bigger than OJ,
Hmm.
as big as he was. Because I think on one hand, there was law enforcement was on trial.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it really was, because you got to figure this is right after the Rodney King
Rodney, yeah,
beating,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's the same city,
Yeah.
right? So L.A. is right where the Rodney King came, which is, nobody will ever forget seeing Rodney King. I mean, that was
Correct.
like a mini series,
Yeah.
seeing Rodney King get beat. And then here you come with the O.J. Simpson case, and there you go. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now you got the LAPD, the one that just got through, going through what they did with the
Hmm.
Rodney King thing. Now here you go. So you got a lot of people who were, they saw it as the police being on trial,
Yeah.
and so when he was found not guilty, a lot of people were extremely happy, because it became about the police,
Yeah.
right? And so I think when people were cheering and they saw all of these problems with the LAPD on prime time, so to
Hmm.
speak, because it wasn't on prime, it was on, I think, CNN maybe at that time.
Yeah.
And to see it was almost like the people who felt like they were being mistreated by the LAPD and police around the world felt vindicated.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it became bigger than O.J. Simpson.
Correct.
Then you had the other element, is you had Johnny Cochran,
Hmm.
who obviously in L.A. everybody, he was a very popular attorney, obviously in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
but around the world, who was also an extremely charismatic person,
Hmm.
brilliant mind. So now you have not only you're being vindicated, the vindication, but it's also him being the primary person,
Hmm.
being this articulate, well-spoken, uh, super swag
Hmm.
attorney,
Yeah.
right? Who happens to be a black man,
Hmm.
right? So then
Yeah.
you had that element to it, right?
Yeah.
So so there was so many things that went, and then on the other hand, then it became so racial, and a lot of it had to do with the media, had a lot to do with it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? They
Most
played,
definitely.
not the Johnny Cochran and the Dream Team is not the only one that played the race card.
Yeah.
Everybody was really playing the race card. It was definitely good TV.
Mm-hmm.
It sold a lot, back when, unfortunately, you know, uh, media has fallen from grace too with social media.
Mm-hmm.
But that's back in a time where you really had newspapers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
journalism was like a real career,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's become a problem. But so that was spectacular.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think like what you were saying in terms of people felt vindicated. You had those people. It's like, how can you cheer for a murderer? Because I remember the TV. I remember sitting in front of the TV when the verdict came in, and people, how they show these snippets from
Mm.
everywhere, and everybody just jumping up
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah. And people looked at that differently. People looked at that. How can you cheer for this murderer, right?
Hmm.
But it wasn't so much that you was cheering for a murder. You was cheering that finally you got it right. All of this time that we seen this Rodney King and everything else that came, prior to that,
Right.
that we were so used to seeing, in
Mm.
the media, because like you say, the media shines a light on what they want to shine a light on. They don't shine a light on the stuff that I won't say that matters, but they won't shine a light on stuff that they don't want you really to see. And they didn't expect this outcome. They didn't expect this jury to come back like they came. But then when the people start cheering, they wasn't looking, like I say, they wasn't looking at people as cheering because they were happy some justice finally got
Hmm.
served. They was looking at it, go, oh, you cheering for this murder.
Hmm.
It's just like when you seen Barack Obama get voted in, you seen people cheer all over. It was just that it was at that particular time, people was like, yes, finally.
Hmm.
And so that's the way you have to look at it. And if you look at it any other way, then you would be looking at it wrong. And I think the people at that particular time, they were happy to see that you finally got it right. But like you say, it shined a light on the police at that particular time
Right.
because it's something that we deal with every single day just living in LA.
Hmm.
And it's not just happened to OJ. It happened to a whole lot of other individuals that the spotlight have not been shined upon.
Hmm.
And so that's why we have the crime rate so great in Los Angeles. That's why we have so many, convictions in Los Angeles. And of course it continues,
Hmm.
So, yeah.
He became a very hated man.
Yeah, he did.
Because people felt like, yeah, it was just it's bizarre. I remember when, and as I told you, like being a lawyer is a second career for me. So when I came out to California to go to law school. I took a class called trial practice, and it's a class that has very limited number of people that can get into the class. I think it was like 15 people,
Mm,
and it was taught by this judge in L.A., an L.A. County judge.
mm,
And so I got into the class, and there were people, and what happens is when you have those kind of classes, there's people who can kind of audit the class and sit outside and wait for people to drop the class. That's just how huge it was. So we probably had 15 people inside the classroom, and then maybe another 20 or 25 people or more trying to get into the class.
mm,
And I remember the professor says, and I don't know what prompted him to say it, but he says, I don't know. He says, I don't really care about what you think about O.J. Simpson. I don't care what you think about the Dream Team. They did their job. The next time I went to class, there was nobody waiting to get into the class.
What?
I mean, people just didn't want to be in the class no more. I mean,
Wow.
I'm like, man, that is crazy. That's just how huge and how soft of a subject that is.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is crazy. Nobody wanted to go to class because he said that. And, I realized just how sensitive of a subject it is when you talk about the O.J. Simpson case, and people, really saw that the cheering. I mean, because you saw the reactions were you'd see people like they show like Subway,
Mm-hmm.
like people were in the different places, like in New York, where you could see like a group of people, and you'd see a group of black people and a group of white people, and the black people cheering, the
Yeah.
white people mad as you know what,
Yeah.
and that was crazy, and
Mm.
and you could see that there was a division,
Yeah.
clearly a division at that point,
Yeah.
and it's just you know I mean, it just shows just the differences
Mm.
among people and their your narrative, man. Your narrative dictates the way you see it. That's why when you choose juries,
Yeah.
you know, and they say that race doesn't matter when you choose juries, it does. I
It
mean,
does.
everybody's narrative is different. I mean, there's no if, buts, and ands about it. The way you
Mm.
see things, I always say that the presumption of innocence, right?
Mm.
Um, you know, everyone wants to believe that they can be fair. In their
Yeah.
minds, they really want to
Correct.
believe that they can be fair. Um, and people get really upset when you point out the fact that they have biases.
Yeah.
The reality of it is everybody has
Everybody.
biases. There is no exception
Correct.
to that. And if not understanding that, then that's one of the most dangerous things
Mm.
is to not understand that we all have biases.
Correct.
And when you're looking at the criminal justice system and the presumption of innocence, and I'm of the belief that the presumption of innocence is the most sacred thing that we have in our country, is the
Mm.
presumption of innocence.
Correct.
With all the things that we have wrong with this country, and clearly we're far from being perfect, that presumption of innocence makes us the best act in town. But
Mm.
that's just my opinion. It don't always work right. We know that.
Right.
But in theory, that's a cold
Yeah.
doctrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, thinking of that, the there are people who don't believe or believe that it's an anomaly for the police to arrest the wrong person, for the prosecutor to prosecute the wrong person, or for the judge to allow such prosecution to take place. There are
Mm.
people who, in their heart of hearts, and bless their heart, believe that.
Yeah.
The problem is that the presumption of innocence and that ideology, a strong ideology like that, don't fit in the same space.
Mm.
Because if you're presuming someone to be innocent, realistically, you have to presume that the police arrested the wrong person,
Yeah.
that the prosecutor is prosecuting the wrong person,
Mm-hmm.
and that the judge is allowing the wrong prosecution to take place in his courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to presume that. And there are people who have a narrative that goes with that,
Yeah.
that cosigns those beliefs. And those are the ones that really need to be on a jury,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, and we oftentimes just don't get that right
Mm.
when it comes to that. I mean, we
Yeah.
talk about it, people want to believe it, but I think that sometimes you're subconsciously it comes out because I know that sometimes when I'm in trials, you have judges that I think that they believe that they're fair, but sometimes some of the rulings that they make is unfair, and a lot of prosecutors prosecute cases that clearly they shouldn't prosecute. That's clearly unfair,
Yeah.
and um, and so that's a huge problem, and we need to change the jury system for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that,
Talked about that for a while now.
and you have to make sure that you have people that represent a cross section of the community. And people get offended when you say those types of things, but we have to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't suggest. I don't. There's a lot of things that uh, I'm ignorant to. and I'm not going to act like that um, I don't have biases.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I can
Yeah.
begin with one. I'm an old country boy, right? I was
Mm.
raised in Tennessee,
Yeah.
and um, my biggest influence was my grandfather, who
Mm.
was a hard, hard worker, right?
Mm.
Um, he didn't believe no shortcuts. Didn't believe, and he used to always say that you eat what you catch. You don't eat just because you're hungry,
Mm.
right? That was his motto, and he could not stand a lazy person.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. If you're lazy, I can't even hide it. I just can't even be around you. I,
Yeah.
I just can't. I mean, I just can't stand those people, man. I'm like, if I get the sense that a person is
Lazy.
lazy,
Yeah.
then you know what I mean. I just cannot stand lazy people. I
Yeah.
just absolutely can't. Some people now, and it kind of feeds over like people think my kids think their generation that
Mm.
I just have this thing about, and because I do tease them about their generation and how
Yeah.
how lazy and
Mm.
sensitive they really are. That's another thing, you can't talk about sensitivity anymore,
No, you can't.
right? That the benefit of growing up in an era where we were not you were expected to be, and I'll probably get in trouble for this, like a man is a man, is a woman is a woman,
Hmm.
and that's what I mean. You
Yeah.
gotta just either put your big pants on or do what you gotta do, and we rode bikes and we fell off of bikes, and
Correct.
you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
nowadays, you can't, um, you know, they don't know how to take stress
Yeah.
because you're like, for example, like kids, you see a kid riding, they got a helmet on and shoulder pads on and knee pads, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then when we was kids, I mean, because
We
they don't
didn't have
want you to
that.
scratch, you don't want you to, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I used to always say the biggest lesson that my mother taught me was how to take a loss.
Yeah.
Now everybody gets a trophy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Win or
the
lose.
big, and I thank my mother for that. To today, I couldn't quit anything. If I started it, I couldn't quit.
Hmm.
Right? Um, I, so, and then you had this whole thing about, being tough, sucking it up,
Hmm.
being tough, not crying, those sort of things. And now that seems like we call it toxic
Yeah.
masculinity, right?
Correct.
Um, and that's on the attack, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I see that now that we're going towards, and I know we're moving away a little bit from the OJ thing, but how did we get on this subject? But anyway, so,
Yeah.
and we're moving away, and it basically, I think that there's a degree of, I think our kids suffer from that,
Yeah.
because you have to be able to, a kid has to know that's why they go to school and shoot up everybody. If you don't
Hmm.
know how to take stress, what are you going to do when something becomes stressful?
Yeah.
You get when I got teased, I know we
Hmm.
used to say, nowadays you couldn't do that. If I went home and said, hey, a kid pushed me at school,
Hmm.
then my mother's going to say, or my grandfather or whoever is just going to say, you need to go in, and you need to, you knuckle up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nowadays, then the parent go up to the school,
School.
and then
Yeah.
they might school this, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Exactly.
we try to protect people. And so when you get into real life and you're dealing with stressful situations, you don't know how to do it because nobody allowed you to do that.
Hmm.
Everybody's sensitive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And everybody's about the bag, right?
Hmm.
Everybody's about the bag. It's all about, getting money, and there's no value. So when you teach a generation of people that life is about getting the bag and life is about money, then what would you do for it?
Correct.
So, you know, when I grew up, life was about what you wouldn't do, right?
Hmm.
And now life is about what you will do.
Exactly.
And the reality of it is that people are, unfortunately in a situation where they will, it's like, do what you got to do to get the bag. Do what you do to got to get that money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's about economics.
Mm.
But it's not, but it don't matter how much money you get if you don't have any values, it don't even matter. Because
Mm.
millionaires and billionaires kill themselves too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
So, so that's something that was on my
Yeah.
mind.
No, you went into talking about your bias because, of course,
Oh
we was
yeah,
talking
about
about
the
the
bias, right?
bias and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
and I'll
About
let you know what it is right now, right?
exactly. That's how we went there. But
Yeah.
yeah, when you was talking about, I had this question for you because I know we've been talking about it for countless years, and I don't think that there's been a mass push, you know, in regards to it. I think we spoke of it several times, but I don't think it caught any ear. I don't see no mass push for it, and that is how to revamp that jury, that we
Mhm.
talked about. And I can't tell you, man, I think from day one, since we came on air,
Mhm.
we've always talked about that. And it's been how many years later, and we still haven't seen no type of jury reform.
Mm-mm.
We still haven't seen anything. So this cycle continues.
Right.
You think we'll ever get to that point?
I don't know. I mean, there's a couple of things that they got to do. First of all, I think that they're going to have to start compensating people for jury duty.
Mm,
Because people from different social economic backgrounds can't do jury duty. I mean,
yeah,
who can take off if your employer doesn't pay for it? Who can do that?
yeah.
No matter who they are. And you have to ask yourself this question: um, there is a benefit. So, in other words, the social economic aspect of it is important.
Correct.
You can't say that every jury can't, you know, be just all. We're not saying all juries could be all black folks and all juries should be all white folks, but it should include certain economic classes because that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so what it does is it excludes people, regardless of their race or gender, from being on a jury because they can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
And we know certain groups are actually, economically are challenged.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do something about that. That's the first thing. And I don't know if they have anything pending to address that issue. They also have to change the rules about kicking people off juries. There is what they call a Batson Wheeler motion, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
because it came from those particular cases. And so if it looks like a prosecutor is systematically kicking off certain jurors, then it could be challenged. But the problem is that even if they find that that's happening, if you can recant or rebut with a race neutral reason, like they were not interested, or this person said he didn't like the police, and see, that's another problem. The problem is that your answers to certain questions are based upon your experiences.
Correct.
So if someone says, "Hey, has anybody ever had any negative experiences with police?"
Yeah.
Right? You
Exactly.
know who's going to raise their hand.
Exactly.
And now that could be a reason to kick them off the jury. So some of them are basically, they're bait.
Mm-hmm.
And so are questions that are going to be, um, it's going to impact certain people differently than other people.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that have negative experiences with the police are probably the people that you want on the jury.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
then when they strike the juror, because there's two types of challenges. You can do it for cause, or you can do it for peremptory challenges. That means that's for any reason. So you can, like, if a person says, "Well, I'll never find a man guilty," or "I'll never vote not guilty."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or I think if he was innocent, he wouldn't be sitting there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
cause. But when peremptory challenges, which can be anywhere from 10 to 20, that means each side can kick off 10 or 20 people, then, you say, I'd like to thank and excuse jury in seat number 4, right? Objection, Batcher Wheeler. You go out back in the back and just say, Your Honor, he's been kicking off nothing but African Americans or Hispanics or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, it's granted. And then he's going to say, how do you rebut that? Well, Your Honor, the reason I kicked off jury seat number 4 is because he said that he's had bad experiences with police officers. Because he said that his cousin got set up by the police, right?
Yeah.
So you see what I mean? And then that
Exactly.
might fly, and there you go.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, that's the problem. And I think that there has to be they have to check those types of questions and change that. Uh, Somehow take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot. Now Newsom had came down with some laws that are the legislature in California has made it more difficult, supposedly, to do that. Um, so there are some laws that are coming down, but not like it's not is it should be rapid and it should be federalized
Yeah.
when it okay it should be federalized.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's a problem, man. We need to address it, and it needs to be. And another thing too is that there's not enough emphasis on it.
Hmm.
People aren't really talking about jury reform the way that they should.
Yeah.
They're talking about everything else, like the police. I mean, there's people that just go under the radar, like the DAs
Hmm.
and the jury commissioners and the jury system goes under the radar. Like you go to most places and you say, "Who's the DA in your county?" Most people don't even know who the DA is in their
Yeah.
county. And so we can pay a little bit more attention to that, which has an impact on because they run strictly on convictions.
Hmm.
I got
Yeah.
a 99% conviction rate. And if people come up and say, look, since you got a 99%, what does that mean? Just
Hmm.
because you convicting, that's not the issue. And maybe if somebody really, went at them, then you would change the culture of the DA's office about
Yeah.
how they choose to prosecute people.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I just never seen a big push. I've always seen push for all these different other things, but I never seen anything with regards uh, to reform that,
Right.
And I just think uh, the time and the era is here for them to be able to do something like that.
Hmm.
Because it does make a big difference. Like I think we always talked about as far as like where they pull a jury from, and they always say the DMV and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But yet when you bring somebody up in Compton that lives way in Cerritos or
Hmm.
Chino Hills and stuff like that, then what DMV is you getting your information from?
Right.
That was always the question. Because I've always been a firm believer that if you take someone who's never been, never was born or raised in a particular area or geographical location, it's going to be hard for them to understand the culture
Hmm.
that exists there and be able to understand the plight of the individuals that actually reside in that particular area.
Hmm.
So it's going to be hard for them to kind of adjust their way of thinking to understand um, where that individual who was being that's being on trial
Hmm.
is going to be hard for them to understand their reality.
Hmm.
So I just think that that definitely has to be addressed,
Hmm.
and it, because if it doesn't, then we're going to continue to deal with this cycle of this incarceration rate.
Hmm.
So and it stems back to I mean, we're not going to see. I don't believe we're going to see anything to the level that we seen, of course, in the OJ case,
Hmm.
ever before. I mean, that was epic there. I don't think you're going to be able to see that,
Yeah.
in some of these
And
cases
to get
because,
that number of I mean, because it's predominantly African American jury.
yeah,
I mean, wow, that was crazy, man. I mean, it was something else, man.
yeah,
I mean, and that it does make a difference a lot of times. Um, but also, what happens with in these cases? I mean, another issue that we have is the things that they admit. They allow things to be admitted into
hmm,
evidence.
yeah,
I mean, because they give you something, but there's always this backdoor way of doing. Like for example, gang evidence. Like the legislature might say, hey, you cannot use gang evidence in a case in chief. Let's say a guy is accused of murder, but it's also based upon gang enhancement.
hmm,
So the way it's supposed to happen is you got to be convicted of murder first.
hmm,
Uh, but the let's just say robbery. Let's
hmm,
use robbery. Let's just say it's a robbery, and they're trying to say you're doing it for the benefit of the gang. So the gang evidence, let's say if you get convicted of robbery, then they can do a gang enhancement, which I don't like that either, because that's really the new Jim Crow.
Yeah.
But the problem with the robbery is that now you can do a couple of things. It can be introduced for motive. It could be introduced. It could be introduced for identification. It could be introduced for different reasons. And then they got backdoor ways of bringing it. So now you've contaminated the jury because they think that the person is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that has to change. Because there's all kinds of, I mean, they let so much stuff in. Like they say identification. Let's just say that a person has a moniker. And let's just say his moniker is Monster.
Yeah.
And let's just say, well, we're going to show that is his moniker, so we're going to bring it to evidence, because when the person did the shooting or did the robbery, that they said that the other person or the co-defendant called him Monster. Then they're going to go to his Facebook page.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then he's got Monster across his chest.
Yeah.
Right? With his set in his hood. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're going to show it over and over and over again. Now, you ain't worried about the robbery. You just know this dude is Monster from this set in this hood.
Exactly.
And so that's how they get down. You know, that's how they do it, and they contaminate you.
Yeah.
Instead of doing and they know exactly what they're doing. The whole idea is to bring in things. Let's give you an example. And real quick, if a person is accused, if a girl accuses a guy of pimping, you cannot use in evidence the fact that she was a prostitute before. That's inadmissible.
How's that?
That's inadmissible. But if he has been a pimp before, that could be admissible.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see how the game is?
Exactly.
You know, or the even sometimes when there's cases where a person has made a prior allegation or something, you want to bring it in to show that maybe this one is not proper either. I mean, it's really cold, and it makes it really difficult for someone who is innocent or overcharged.
Yeah.
See, that's a huge issue. People don't understand that sometimes people are overcharged.
Yeah.
Like the guy really didn't rob nobody. He actually basically did something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe, it's crazy, man. Maybe a guy was firing a gun up in the air, and they got him for attempted murder when it was really, shooting a firearm in public, or maybe brandishing the firearm.
But the fact that he was a gang member, they can tie that in with
because he's shooting up in the air, and there's like 5 other people over there.
Wow.
There's so many different things, but they always going to go for the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then the whole idea is to get as much time as you possibly can against somebody. It's crazy. It's a cold game, man.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So man, but my man OJ, but we forgot to talk about the fact that he just passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said he passed away
for cancer.
Yeah.
And that's like I said, man, it's amazing, with a guy, the life that he had before all that stuff. Like I said, people don't remember.
They don't remember that. They don't remember that one moment in your life that and that's a sad reality.
Yeah.
That you get that one blemish, and not saying that it's a minor blemish, but it's just people, people's perception and what they think,
Yeah.
But even so, his whole life was run just because of
And
that.
before we go, we got to say this one. You heard about what's Bruce Jenner's name? Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh yeah, I forget it. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, he was dogging him out, man, and not to mention, but he got in trouble for allegedly killing somebody in a car accident. That's been the big thing.
Exactly.
But at any rate, we'll appreciate everybody for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel, and until that time, stay blessed.
I'm mad to get down with NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Radio. This is your host, Robert Manny, welcoming you to the place where men and women can be at their best and everyone wins. Guys Radio. We're here to inform you, inspire you, empower you, and get you to think, feel, and who knows, maybe even act by virtue of the journeys, stories, experiences, and insights of the guests I bring you each and every week to the show. Once again, this week is no exception. Today, we're going to talk about the dimensions. We're going to talk about the third, the fourth, and the fifth dimensions with our special guest, a return guest, a friend of the show, and a friend of mine, and a teacher of mine, Bill McKenna, the creator of the Cogno movement, which helps you rewire your brain for an improved performance and a lot of things that you do in life. And we're going to get into what's going on the planet right now. And we're going to get into the third, the fourth, and the fifth dimension. So let's just table set before we bring Bill out. I mean, we live in a world where everything's about energy and everything's connected. Whether you want to agree with that or not, it's pretty much that's the way it is. And people talk about manifestation all the time and about getting into the proper frequency to bring in what they want. Well, we are in what's called the third dimension, and the third dimension has specific characteristics, and apparently, based on a lot of teachings and studies, we're moving as a species, humanity's moving towards the fourth dimension, and then ultimately we're all headed towards the fifth dimension. It's all about our vibration levels as a species on this planet, and also for our planet, for our Gaia, if you will. You know, the name of the show is Guys Radio, and I could talk about football and the Middle East and Donald Trump and stuff like that, but I think it's important to get new information for consideration out there for guys, specifically because guys get caught up in their habits and in their work, and they sometimes aren't that open to new ideas, and they think they know everything, and I know how that feels because I get that way myself. So what I want to do on the show is bring in some new thinking, new ideas, some food for thought, because I think what's happening is nowadays more men are starting to really wake up and say, hey, what the heck is going on here? Was I sold a bill of goods in terms of being told, here's how you live your life? It's the same thing for women also. Fortunately, and I'll make a generalization here, I think women are a lot more open to a lot of the metaphysical and spiritual issues and a lot of the stuff we cover on the show. But this one is for everybody because we're all right now in the third dimension. So what is the third dimension? We're going to get into that with my guest Bill, but let me give you a couple of characteristics. Conditional love, laws, regulations, rules, polarity, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, very competitive, fear-based, always feeling you're not good enough, a lot of limitations, a lot of very strict beliefs, and a lot of strong reactions to things we don't want. And I think you can see that reflected in our media and reflected in everything that's going on right now on our planet. What we want to get to, as we seem to be moving, some people faster than others, no judgment there, but it just seems to be what's happening, is fourth dimension's more about unconditional love, options and choices, access to intuition and will, at will rather, allowing people to be happy, being happy with other people's joy, observing without judgment, releasing of absolutes like this or that, and also more synchronicities with that are commonplace. And in the fifth dimension, we get there, things can happen very quickly. It's almost telepathic peace. Rational mind has a minimal role. Cooperation, not competition. Contentment, and what they call, and you've heard the term, instant karma. This is from a map of awareness that I believe Bill put together. So we're going to talk about that and more here on Guys Radio, and it's all about how we as a species are moving towards the fourth dimension. Some people want to get there, and other people want to keep things the way they are or go back to the way they were, and it's all up to you as an individual to decide what you want to do. Do you want to open up? To me, it's all about the truth. I want to know what's true. If what I've been taught, if what I've been sold, if what I bought into is just not true, I want to know it. I want to know what is true. And I think the peeling away of all of this nonsense that we've been fed by the media is all about allowing our true selves to emerge. And I think that's what it's all about. So let's get into that with our special guest, Bill McKenna, on Guys Radio.
It's Guys Guy Radio.
Okay, Guys Radio, it's the interview portion of our show, and we're welcoming in our YouTube and Rumble viewers to the show. Today, we're going to talk about the third, the fourth, the fifth dimensions, and maybe even more than that with our special guest, return guest, my friend and teacher, the developer, creator, and leader of the Cogno movement, Bill McKenna. Welcome back to the show, Bill.
Oh, thanks, Robert.
Let's start out with Cogno movement, because not everybody's aware of what Cogno movement is. It is a way to rewire your brain for better results and living your best life. But let you drill down a little bit more for our audience.
Okay, so Cogno movement is based in neuroscience. It is based neurological exercises for your brain and your nervous system that's going to build mental acuity. It also increases athletic performance. So we use many different methods, hundreds and hundreds of different techniques in combination that will basically coax your brain into making connections. And with that, all of your life changes. I love the way Dr. Daniel Amen of the Amen Clinic says, a better brain, a better life. Everything is impacted. If you got everything working upstairs, your finances, your relationships, everything just starts operating correctly.
Give us one example of a success story with Cogno movement for our listeners and viewers.
You know, it's hard to even choose an example because it spans literally all of life. But
you said athletes, Bill. So give us an example of how you can enhance your athletic performance.
So I'll start with the very first discovery. It was my daughter. My daughter. We were just, playing around on the floor, and I say, okay, let's do exercises. We're going to do push-ups. We're going to learn how to do push-ups today. And, okay, how many can we do? And, I showed her the push-ups. I said, okay, you do it. And it was like one push-up fell down and like, I can't do it. Yes, you can. So I'm encouraging her. You can do it. You got the strength. And she tries again, boom, can't do it. So we did a basic Cogno movement. What I did is I got her left and right brain synchronized. And it was very simple. I have a ball with colors on it, and you catch on one side of your body and say the color, and then I had her catch on the other side of her body and say the color. And I just let's play catch. And what we know is this actually forces information across your corpus callosum, the logic and the creative sides of your brain. So we did the exercise, and we only did it for a few minutes, just basically playing catch. And I was like, hey, let's go back and try push-ups again. Not saying anything in the exercise about push-ups. And she was like, boom, 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 pumping off push-ups. Just pumping them off like they were nothing. But it was that was the very first athletic performance set. Since then, we do Olympic athletes and everything from the Olympians in volleyball to the Olympics in cycling. They all have the same type of issues. I had a client who was going for the Olympic team in cycling and literally kept falling off the bike. Within a 2-week period, they had some traumas, and they couldn't stay on the bike. Fell off 8 times in 2 weeks. You're not going on the Olympic team. No, not happening. And we did the exercises, and unbelievable. Unbelievable is, there's push and shove in the races. And she's out there racing and pushing and shoving and bang, they do these exercises where they bang into each other. And she's like having fun with it all. Mm-hmm. So it's a completely different picture. My point is that it spans.
Okay. What causes, and I want to get onto the dimensions, but what causes this communication gap, if you will, between the two sides of the brain that you need to have it rewired?
There are so many things. It starts when we're young. If we don't crawl when we are developing, there's a stage where if you don't actually cross crawl, there's a connectivity that doesn't happen within the brain. Okay. If you do this at a later age, say you just went from sitting to walking, right? Kids kind of scooch and then they walk. They didn't crawl. They have emotional problems and reading and other problems because they just went to walking. They didn't go through the stage. Other things are associated with it. But when they go through it as adults, and start this cross-patterning in their brain through exercises, they may start wetting their bed for a week or two. And they're like, what the heck? What? I'm a full-grown man. How did that happen? Well, they're going through the developmental stages. What else can happen? Well, you could get a concussion. All of us bang it up, all the time. If you're in play football or mixed martial arts or anything, or just have an accident, that will cause it. If you go and certain drugs will do it. If you have an emotional trauma, something that you hadn't been able to process, these are all damages that happen within the brain, and the information doesn't flow quite as easily.
Okay. Excellent. Let's, and good work you're doing there, Bill. Let's get into the subject of today, because we've talked about cognitive movement a few times on the show, and I want to devote this time to what's happening right now in our world. It seems like there is a lot of talk about ascension, a lot of talk about the fact that we've been living in a 3D world where basically we're kind of spirits that are squashed into these meat suits that we're wearing for our time on Earth. And there's a fourth dimension and there's a fifth dimension that are more readily available to us now collectively. And some people are kind of making the move a little faster than other people. And it's an issue because it seems like there's a lot of crazy behavior on there. I don't know if it has anything to do with the recent solar eclipse, if that fostered anything that way, but it seems like people are pretty kooky right now. I don't know if you've experienced it or noticed it, but I'm seeing it more and more. And I'm fortunately on my own path where I'm witnessing a lot of things and not letting myself get pulled into the drama of how other people are behaving these days. I'm doing the best I can to be kind and just try to be helpful. Not always successful, but doing my very best. So what's happening on our planet now? And then what are these dimensions that we're talking about? The third, the fourth, the fifth dimensions?
I'll preface this with, if I heard myself talking 20 years ago about this, I probably would have been like, you're high on crack. There's just that is just, I can't even relate. But there's something that's really true out there. And it's, the truth is that we are moving from the third dimension to the fourth on our way to the fifth dimension as a species. And so, what is that? What is the third dimension? Well, the third dimension is a dimension where it has certain characteristics. You're going to feel a certain way and certain things are going to be happening. All of these dimensions are simultaneously in effect. And clearly, from what you say, Robert, is you're clearly in the fourth dimension. How do I know this? Because you have the availability of making a choice in the fourth dimension to allow others to be, do, and say as they wish, and not to be in a reaction. So in the third dimension, I can't help it. I literally can't help it. I'm in reaction. If you're having a negative thought and feeling, shame, guilt, grief, humiliation, anger, fear, resentment, all of these are literal reactions. Every time you've been afraid, did you choose it? No, you just were afraid. Every time you were angry, did you choose, like, I'm choosing to be angry? I just feel it, you know? That's a reaction. And the third dimension is one of reactions. It is a dimension that is governed by conditional love. Conditional love. That is its overlord, if you will. This conditional love sets up separation. There's yours and mine. There is judgment.
Transactional, right?
It's transactional. It's transactional. And it is the perfect for institutions. So what do I mean by an institution? I mean your governments. I mean the religions of the world. I mean all the school systems, the club systems. All of them have hierarchies, right? You know, if you wore a robe, right, you're put up on a pedestal. Judges wear robes. Priests wear robes. They're better than me. They're going to judge me, right? And well, hopefully the priest didn't, but bottom line is that there's a better and worse than. And with this, there is the laws, rules, and regulations. We put into place all of these things that literally separate us. Underlying all of this, what we have is judgments and assumptions. I'm going to see this as better than that, right? But it's including a feeling like that's crap, that's awesome, right? And we humans, when we're in this dimension, how do I know it? Is that I have one of those feelings, and I also am on a quest to look for satisfaction outside of myself. Like romantically. Romantic love is very at home in the third dimension. You know, it's the pinnacle for all of us in the third dimension is, oh my God, that white knight or that beautiful woman or whatever it might be. With that, we're basically looking to them for a feeling of love, for a feeling of acceptance. It's outside of me.
Okay. Bill McKenna, my special guest on Guys Radio. He is the creator of the Cogno movement that we've talked about. Bill is also a frequent guest on Gaia TV, usually with Regina Meredith or George Norrie on their shows. So we're delighted to have him as a regular on Guys Radio, because what we're doing here is we want to bring new information to guys and to women and to everybody to help them live their best lives. And Bill always has some new information for us, including today. So we're getting into the gist of what is the third dimension. It sounds like it's kind of a fight or flight type of situation we're in. You're never really satisfied. You have a difficulty making things happen. It's just an unsatisfying dimension to be in many ways, satisfying in other ways, because we are the 3D, you know, we are connected to the earth. If we allow ourselves to be, we can be connected to a certain extent with each other. We can have our own personal sovereignty, but it can be a lot better than that. So talk to us about this evolution into the fourth dimension, Bill, which you mentioned that you noticed that you think I might be heading in that direction, and that I'm witnessing more, judging less, hopefully, and not letting other people's behavior drive me as crazy as it could, because right now people are really going crazy. Maybe that's a judgmental statement, but I'm just witnessing that. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that person just did that.
Well,
Daily.
Daily, yeah. But here's the key word you used. You're witnessing it. You're witnessing it. And you're not feeling and engaging with it. Like if I get really upset about it and I engaging with it, that firmly places me right back into the third dimension. I'm afraid of it, that sort of thing. So one of the things that happens, there is a transition that literally we're all on the path, and you're going to get there. The only factor here is how much am I going to resist this? How much am I going to stick into the old way, what used to be? So in the fourth dimension, we begin to let go of our judgments and our assumptions. And with that, we start to have a different experience of time. This is weird. But in time, in the third dimension, you're in the past and the future. And whatever's going on right now, you're just reacting. It's just rote and a reaction. And I'm not choosing it. So when I start to let go of my judgments and my assumptions about other people, all of a sudden it goes from thoughts of the future and the past to more awareness of now. And I begin to see positive things about other people, things that I like about other people. I also, interestingly enough, go from I don't even like me to I do. I actually begin to like me. And I no longer am searching outside of myself for a good feeling. The good feeling is just in me. Things will bring me pleasure, but I start to experience them as pleasure. But the feeling I have is rooted in me. Whether I have that great donut or that vacation, I still have this wonderful feeling in me.
Because you're you. Let me ask you this, Bill. So, how do people deal with the institutions we have are fostering this feeling of separation and judgment, judging on everything, this or that, this or that, this or that, black or white, the polarity, whether it's politics, whether it's cultural issues. I mean, this is being driven to us at all times. We're all on this path heading towards the fourth dimension. How can people make sure okay, we're doing what we're doing now, having this conversation to help people become aware of what's going on. How can people then begin to put themselves in a witnessing perspective and start to enjoy all there is in the fourth dimension? Because I can attest to it. I think it's a lot better. I had something happen to me the other day as part of this process where I'm one of the coaches on my son. He's 11 years old, 10 years old, going to be 11 soon, baseball team. They had lost every game, but they've been inching closer and closer. And finally, they got to the point where they put it all together and they were in the last inning. And I saw I felt the energy in the stands of the parents and the kids. And my son was on the mound pitching. And I could feel it. And when he got the third out, he went storming off the mound. They all came running. I actually felt, and I'm not like this, I felt their joy. I was as happy as they were for them. And usually I would just see that and say, that's great. But I actually felt that joy, and it was as good as the joy that I would feel about myself. And I had another thing happen where I gave somebody a recommendation for a job, and I knew this person really needed a job, and they called on me. I gave them a great recommendation, and I felt so much love for this person to put that I was so pleased to give that recommendation. They got the job, and I'm as happy as I could possibly be about any job that this person got it. And that's not like me, but that's how maybe I'm changing that way as part of this ascension process. And it's not about me. I'm just a regular person, but I'm aware of this stuff from speaking with people like you and other thought leaders we've had on the show. So what I want to do is show folks out there that, this is the type of stuff that can happen if you put in the energy and the intention to really raise yourself up and do more than and enjoy life the way you can really enjoy it, because the fourth dimension is more enjoyable.
Oh my gosh. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations. That is, the evidence shows up. The evidence of what dimension you're in literally just shows up involuntarily. You're actually feeling joy, joy for another. And this isn't like in your head, this is in your body, correct?
In your heart, yeah.
In your heart. So in the third dimension, you're considered that your primary is survival, right? My health, my finances, our relationships, meaning predominantly sex. And these are attractions and aversions. You're going to find strong attractions and strong aversions in the third dimension. And the other is power, my personal power. Again, either like strongly attracted or adverse, right? Got a real strong feeling about it. When you go and move dimensions, your literal feeling and the focus within your physical body changes. You are in transit right now to the fifth dimension. In the fourth dimension, our attention starts to be drawn to the top of our head and our forehead area. And you'll find that it's very different than the sides of your head. But in the fifth dimension, our attention migrates again, and it migrates down to our heart. When we are feeling this joy like that, you were embraced in their joy, you felt joy for them, and you felt their joy.
Yes.
As one.
Well,
as one.
So for our audience, Bill, this just happened to me and I noticed it. How can folks out there who are interested in the same thing, and we're all headed in this direction anyways, and some people will reject it, of course, like anything, and that's their right. But other people want to know what's out there, how do they enjoy life more, how to make things more fulfilling. What are some of the things they can do to make this transition, which is happening anyhow, easier, unless they want to reject it?
Okay, there are what I would call the low-hanging fruit of do it right now on the show. Right now, right here. The first thing that you can do is to allow others to be, do, and say as they wish. Begin there. Just that. That alone will take you forward. Why would you want to do this? It will make you free. If you try it right now and you just let go of the feeling, is like, I'm going to allow you to be you. I'm going to allow you to have the life that you created for yourself. This is particularly difficult when you have family members that you care about. But I'm going to allow you to have the life that you've created for yourself so that you can grow. We're here to grow. We're here to change our mind. And when I free myself up, the most interesting dynamic happens. Those people that I did try to hold in position, whatever that might be, you'll find that they're actually closer to you. They start liking you. You'll find that your life starts to go easier. In the fourth dimension, life happens through synchronicity and coincidences. It just starts happening. And it happens at a faster and faster pace, what you put your mind on. Ultimately, when you get to the fifth dimension, I'll tell you a story. One of my students this morning, this happened this morning. One of my students, 86 years old, on a hike, 86, very healthy, just as vibrant as you and me. And she's starting to get low blood sugar. And she knows if this happens, then I'll get a migraine and so on and so forth. And she's like, I'm too far. I've gone too far. I can't get back. I have to, go this whole loop to get back to the house. I would really like some cheese. She's in the Northwest, by the way. This is the Northwest in the forest. Man, I really would like some cheese. When I get back, I know there's cheese in the fridge. I'm going to have that. And she's thinking about the cheese. And, she's in that state in her heart. And all of a sudden, the dog, she looks down at the dog, and the dog's like gnawing on some package. Gnawing on a package. And she looks down and she's like, damn it, he didn't get into the package. But the package is salami and hermetically sealed cheese. She was like, oh.
So things start showing up. I love it.
But it wasn't a monkey. It wasn't a snake. It wasn't a window. It wasn't a car. It wasn't a body. It wasn't 1 million things. It was cheese. And that was just today. This is a very real phenomenon when they talk about these dimensions. I thought when I first heard this, you are so full of it, right? These, that you think something and it's going to happen, especially like that. Oh, just a random weird coincidence. But now, decades later, I see that it's damn truth. I had another person, literally this happened. I think I told you the story, but I hadn't talked about it on the air. A friend of mine is reading a recipe at lunch, and it calls for corn salsa, and she's there and says, reads the recipe and says, oh, damn, I really wanted to make this chicken with the corn salsa, but I don't really want to go down to Trader Joe's and get it. I'll just make something else. She puts the paper down. No kidding. It was 5 minutes. 5 minutes. A knock comes on the door. Opens the door. Oh, hi.
Here's your salsa delivery, Trader Joe's here.
Trader Joe's. No, it's not just salsa. It's corn salsa from Trader Joe's. And she was like,
wait a minute. Just that was it? Somebody from
seriously. One of the neighbors came over and says, hey, you know what? I know we haven't met before, and I'm your neighbor. I have this corn salsa. I took a spoonful of this corn salsa. It's not contaminated or anything, but I just didn't like it. And I just thought about you, and I was like, you know what? I wonder if you'd like this corn salsa.
That is hilarious.
And I was like, oh, why? Actually, I would. Thank you so much.
So, Bill, and my special guest on Guys Radio, the creator of Cogno Movement, and we're talking about dimensions today. Bill McKenna is here with us on Guys Radio, and we're having a fun conversation. So, the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions, again, we are trained to stay in the third dimension. I'll give you an example with texting. So many people communicate more and more using the little box and putting words in there, and you don't know sometimes irony or sarcasm or what's funny and intention of the words. You just get flat words in a little box. And to me, it perpetrates the separation of the 3D separation. So it seems like everything in our system, including our technology, is continuing to drive us to stay in the 3D dimension. So my question is, what else besides kind of the witnessing, what else can people do? Our audience out there, if they want to start to evolve to this fourth dimension where they can make things happen more quickly on the way to the fifth dimension, where manifestation is way faster, what can they do to start to reap the fruits of living in a fourth dimension?
So, so as we go through this entire thing, this interview today, we're kind of unpacking little kind of snippets of each dimension. And once you start to understand the aspects of the dimension, then you can actually choose different aspects and start to evolve. One of the things that you can do in the fourth dimension is you become willing to accept change. You're willing to accept change, and you begin to forgive. You forgive yourself and others. If you can begin this process of forgiveness, it sets you up to be experiencing kind of the synchronicities, the coincidences, the positive relationships, and feeling a feeling of love for yourself. Now, in the third dimension, it's a dimension where we experience fear and doubt.
Mm-hmm.
In the fourth dimension, we now begin to experience love and trust. So we migrate from those aspects of fear and doubt. In a way, it is the exposure of truth. It's when I begin to trust, what happens is I merely begin to simply see the truth. And for everyone listening, you know, we all have financial concerns or concerns for our health. But the truth is, ask yourself this. I was born and I'm so many years old today. I'm 30, I'm 50, I'm 90, however old I am. Did you always, for all of this time, you were born, you got here, and did you ultimately have enough to eat? Ultimately. May not have been the food you wanted, but did you have enough to eat? The fact is, you're actually listening to this. So look at the litmus test this for your life. Did you have clothes on your back? Did you have somewhere to sleep? Even if it was under a bridge or in a tent or in a sleeping bag, you had somewhere to sleep, something to eat, and you made it. You made it. So the truth is the truth of your life. That's whatever your experience is, will be your truth. Now, as we move dimensions, truth is exposed and trust comes out. Now, this goes from the very biggest of pictures to your own personal life. What do I mean by that? Has anybody noticed that all of these situations, like, the Catholic Church and the pedophiles, that, the Epstein, Weinstein scandals, all of the things around the Boy Scouts and their exposure. Have you noticed the Me Too movement and that all the secrets that these women were holding got exposed? All these people got exposed. It's not a coincidence. It is migration from third dimension. Third dimension is where secrets were held. Governments are all about that. Go ahead.
Why now? Why is this happening? Is it a timing thing where some people say 2000, the year 2000, and the Y2K, that came and went, and then a lot of people said 2012, and then people are saying, oh, the solar eclipse, all this stuff's going to happen. Is it all a process that these things are starting to open up?
It's all just a process of things naturally evolving and opening up. It is a very grand, timing. in different cultures around the world, they describe it in different ways. In the Indian tradition, they're called yugas, and these are grand cycles of time. And with all of these grand cycles of time, they have certain aspects, meaning there's an evolution and there's a de-evolution that happens. We happen to be and in this one cycle where we're evolving. So they have the cycles of time they call a day of Brahma. Brahma being they all God, universe, whatever you want to call it, and it is everybody's heard of the Big Bang, the explosion. Well, nobody really talks about it, but there's also an implosion. So you have the Big Bang and then you have the reverse. So this is a day in the life of Brahma, and then they have it divided down into other cycles, and the characteristics of these are very well defined. In the West, we have these Golden Age, Bronze Age, Age of Enlightenment, these sorts of things. So it's just that is something that we're all going through, and it's inclusive of our planet and us as a species on the planet.
The then transition, if you will, the evolution from the third dimension, which it seems like this planet and humanity have been in the third dimension for thousands of years. We're moving quickly into the fourth dimension. Things seems to happen faster and faster with every passing year. What is the time frame? First of all, double question here, Bill. What is the fifth dimension, and what is the time frame for our evolution into the fifth dimension as a species?
I don't have really a time frame. I just don't have really a crystal ball to be able to say when that's going to happen. But a lot of people are already beginning to experience it. These weird things like we talked about, the cheese and the corn salsa. These are becoming
instant manifestation. And talk to us about the fifth dimension. What actually is it? How does it differ? Because it seems like this fourth dimension is kind of a bridge to the ultimate, for us at least, the fifth dimension. There's many more dimensions beyond that, but it seems like fifth dimension people talk about all the time. There was even the band, The Fifth Dimension, The Age of Aquarius, and making things happen right away, and telepathic thoughts and manifestation instantly, and just a lot of different things happening quickly.
So the fifth dimension, you're right. I like to call it the training wheels. We're on our way to the fifth dimension, and the fourth dimension is the training wheels to get to the fifth. Now, what do I say the training wheels? I say the training wheels because we have to let go of our judgments and assumptions and all of our reactions, and we need time to do that. It's not going to happen instantly, right? We're humans, things stimulate us. In the fifth dimension, what happens is that we begin to migrate down to your heart, like your experience, and we begin to feel joy not only in and for ourselves, but for others. And you said something super important when you said that about your experience with your son. I experienced viscerally their joy. This is the experience of oneness. I'm experiencing oneness. And the fifth dimension is about oneness. So you had a moment in time and a couple of flashes here where it's starting to pop for you. And with that, what happens is more and more you will experience it, and bliss will emerge because you have stopped judging and you are experiencing that joy of other people. You will experience instant things happening, like the corn salsa or the cheese. And it's going to show up kind of like a pop, like, what the hell's the cheese doing here that I really wanted? It's like very shocking, and you'll almost deny that you had anything to do with it. But this fifth dimension, the characteristics of it are a feeling of oneness, a feeling of peace, a feeling of bliss. You will experience instant karma because you're now begin to feel one with others. Whatever I'm doing to them, I'm doing to me. And this is in all respects because I am in this oneness. Now, what happens is we go from, in the third dimension, linear time, which is 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. In the fourth dimension, time speeds up. And you're also, in the fourth dimension, in the third dimension, my attention is in the past and future. In the fourth dimension, I am beginning to actually have more attention now. And in the fifth dimension, there is only now. Everything is happening now. You've heard about this and people experiencing it after they die, that all things are happening now.
Same time, right? Yeah.
The same time. So you will experience things happening in two ways. I mentioned some of the positive ones, but there's also the negative ones that show up because you're, for example, in this state of joy and oneness. And then if you have a negative thought, it pops you out of it, all of a sudden something might happen. Okay. But we can talk more about that.
So the point is mind your thoughts, because you can make it real good. And if you're not careful, you can kind of get on a slippery slope. So much more to discuss, so much more to experience, so much more to learn. And as they say, when the student's ready, the teacher shows up. And one of my teachers is Bill McKenna. And hopefully for all of the listeners and viewers out there, we're learning a lot from Bill today, as we always do. So thank you for being on Guys Radio. Tell everybody where they can find out more about you, Cogno Movement, your partner, Liz Larson, and all the great work you guys are doing.
Oh, fantastic. So I have a little gift for everybody. If they like, they can go to Cogno Movement. That's COGNOMOVEMENT.com/Gaia, GAIA. And they can get the dimensions. You can print it out and put it on your refrigerator. There's also a class there. It's free. You can have this and you can see where am I at and what's going to happen. There's a bunch of different features that you'll see.
I want it. Well, thank you.
CognoMovement.com/Gaia.
Great to see you again. Thanks for being on Guys Radio, and we'll see you again sometime soon. All best, Bill.
Thank you.
It's Guys Guy Radio.
Okay, another terrific conversation with my guest, Bill McKenna, the creator of Cogno Movement, all about the dimensions. And, as we discussed, we're moving from the third to the fourth and ultimately the fifth dimension as a species. If you don't believe it, that's fine. You can do your thing. If you want to stay in the third dimension, that's your choice also. A lot of people nowadays seem to be waking up and say, what else is out there? Was I sold a bill of goods as to all these things I was told as to how to live my life, how I'm supposed to see things, what's supposed to happen, why all these rules we're supposed to follow. Now, I believe in laws and everything, but I'm talking about rules in terms of determining how you live your life and the choices you make. So when you get into the fourth dimension, it seems to be it's more neutral. You can witness more. It's not as judgmental. You learn to adapt. There's more of a consistency and feeling good about things instead of having swings in terms of your mood and how you experience the world. I think it's a good thing. For me, that's where I want to be headed, and I hope you join me and everybody else is going there too, because it's a much more conscious way of living, and then things start to happen through us instead of to us. So Guys Radio, we're here every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Pacific Time on KCAA Radio in Southern California, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. The show rebroadcasts every Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time and Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time on KCAA. We're also available on all of their social media, their app, website, etc. So you can find us there very easily. Our podcast, YouTube and Rumble, post worldwide every Thursday. We're on every major podcast platform and more, and we've been downloaded in over 100 countries around the world. You can watch our interview portion of the show on YouTube and Rumble every week. And we're also on UK Health Radio, the world's largest talk health station, radio station in the world. It's digital. We're on 4 times every weekend, and also on demand. So if you want to catch Guys Radio, we're everywhere. And I ask you one favor. If you could, and it doesn't cost you anything, but a like, a subscription, and maybe a review even. But it's all free that we offer you this content and these ideas and these concepts and these great thought leaders we bring you each and every week through the show. So if you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week to Guys Radio and Guys TV, the video portion of our show, please subscribe on the platforms where you consume the show. Really appreciate it. It makes a difference. We want to do more and more shows. So thank you. You can also catch me on UK Health Radio's Health Triangle magazine. I write a column there. It's called Aging is a Choice. It's all about exploding the myth about what we've been told aging is all about, and also a whole bunch of practices and protocols and things I've learned about how to stay as young and vital and vibrant as possible as we age. And these are all practices and protocols that I do and have been doing, and I've gotten great results. I share them to you in Health Triangle magazine, and also on my website, robertmanni.com, MANNI.com. I've got over 300 blog posts about life, love, the pursuit of happiness. I bring over the content, the Health is a Choice, Aging is a Choice series shows up also onto my website, so you can read the articles there. And also, you can download 3 free chapters of my novel, The Guy's Guide to Love, which is really the source material for everything Guy's Guy. It's a sexy romp through the fast-moving, high-stake world of Madison Avenue advertising, which I experienced firsthand, and it's been called the man's successor to Sex and the City by iconic author Dan Wakefield. It's a lot of fun. It's fast, it's frothy, it's sexy, and it's a great summer read, but it's about something. It's really about something, and people seem to really enjoy this book. It's came out a couple of years ago, but it's still selling, and people seem to really enjoy it. So you can check out 3 free chapters on my website, and then you can download and buy the physical copy or the digital copy. It's up to you. So there's plenty of content. There's so much information we share with you on Guys Radio, and that is our goal. Share information for you to consider to help you live your best life. We're not telling you you need to do this or that. We're serving up the information, we're serving up the thought leaders, we're bringing them to you, and you determine what works for you. I do the same thing. I've talked to over 700 of these folks over the years, and I've added a lot of protocols and practices to my own daily life, and hopefully you'll pick out some things that work for you or things that you want to learn more about. That's what we do for you here on Guys Radio. So I hope you'll stick with us. And thank you so much for your support. I want to thank all of my wonderful guests I've interviewed over the years. I want to thank my wonderful producer, Chris, my strategy lead, Ryan, and also, most of all, I want to thank you, our wonderful growing audience. You really make the difference, and we're here for you each and every week. I'm going to see you again next week. And until then, like I always say, guys, finish first.
It's a bird!
It's a plane!
No, it's Super Roth!
Okay, a gimmicky opening for a commercial about Super Roth Universal Life Insurance, but I'm sure it got your attention. Now, what is a Super Roth, you ask? It's a permanent indexed universal life insurance that's totally liquid and easily accessible once it matures. Can be used to supplement retirement savings or a death benefit, or both. Has no income or contribution limit. Has no 5-year rule like Roth IRAs. Has no 10% penalty for accessing the funds before age 59 and a half. Oh, and the average historical returns are 5 to 7% annually, tax-free. Super Roths also lock in gains, which means you don't lose your money when the market is down. Sounds incredible, right? Sounds super? Super Roths are the way of the future, specifically your future. To see if you qualify for a Super Roth, go online to thesuperroth.com.
Was your car involved in an accident or just need help with dents? All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers. In business for over 30 years. Their highly trained staff and certified technicians and friendly staff are the best in the business and treat each car as if it was their own. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers are family owned and offer state-of-the-art equipment and tools to ensure optimum results. They use the latest technology in computerized color matching and specialize in frame repairs. With their modern laser measuring systems, they're OEM certified, and they have 4 locations to serve you. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers offer rental car assistance with free drop-off and pickup services too, and their work has a lifetime guarantee. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers are in Norco, Eastvale, Moreno Valley, and in Fontana. Call them at 1-800-61-MAGIC. That's 1-800-61-MAGIC. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers. 1-800-61-MAGIC. All Magic Paint and Auto Body says, drive carefully.
E-Digits. Lock them in for more information, recreation, and guaranteed fun. KCAA 1050 AM.
The sensation of grilling is awesome, except for having to kneel down and reach around the greasy tank to turn the propane on again. Well, not anymore. Introducing the one and only Tank Crank Propane Tank Extension. With the help of the Tank Crank, now grilling preparation is as easy as turn the tank crank. Press the button on and grill. That's right, because of the Tank Crank, you just turn, press, and grill. Learn more and purchase your own Tank Crank Propane Tank Extension right now by simply going to www.tankcrank.com. That's tankcrank.com. To install Tank Crank, just extend one end of the hose down and screw it into the propane tank. Just once. Then all you'll ever need to do is turn, press, and grill. Say goodbye to bending, kneeling, or stooping over your propane tank and trying to turn the knob. Instead, get yourself the Tank Crank Propane Extension and make grilling as easy as turn, press, and grill. Tank Crank, let's get grilling.
For over 75 years, the Marine Toys for Tots program has provided toys and emotional support to economically disadvantaged children, primarily during the holidays. But needs are not just seasonal, and now, neither is Toys for Tots. They've expanded their outreach to support families in need all year long, with their new programs, including the Foster Care Initiative, the Native American Program, and the Youth Ambassador Program. To learn how you can help, visit toysfortots.org.
The benefits of adding a Ritchie to your operation extend far beyond saving you time, money, and water. By choosing Ritchie, you'll conserve water, protect the land, reduce energy, and promote a healthier environment for generations to come. Because we know, like you know, that every saved drop matters.
Hi, I'm
Start a
Frank
ripple
Allen
effect
Morgan,
of
and I'm excited to tell you
sustainability
about
today.
Ray's Shanghai Bistro in Redlands. Ray's Shanghai Bistro offers the largest and most delicious array of traditional and original Chinese dishes available in the Inland Empire. Some of my favorite dishes are the house-made pot stickers, the crisp pork spare ribs with garlic, their unique spicy lamb with bamboo, the sweet and tangy deep-fried orange peel beef, and the savory basil spicy shrimp, plus lots of vegetarian dishes. Whether you dine in, pick up the food, or have them cater your next party or special occasions, you will see why Ray's, spelled R-U-I', Shanghai Bistro is truly the best Chinese restaurant in the Inland Empire.
Make sure to check out their new location at 405 West Stewart Avenue in Redlands, California. Right across from
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
NBC News Radio, I'm Rob Martier. At least 2 deaths are being blamed on severe weather that ripped through the state of Oklahoma. Brian Gann has more.
Oklahoma Emergency Management reports a man and a child died in the town of Holdenville, where homes were destroyed. Damage is also being reported in a number of other communities, including the small town of Morris, where Jeff Moore with Okmulgee County Emergency Management says crews were on standby as the storm hit.
After everything cleared, we started responding to the area to do cleanup and search and rescue operations.
Governor Kevin Stitt has declared a state of emergency for a dozen counties.
The National Weather Service says the outbreak of severe weather also caused widespread damage in parts of Iowa, Nebraska, Texas, and Kansas. The niece of an Israeli-American hostage being held by Hamas in Gaza believes a hostage deal can be reached. Hannah Siegel told CBS's Face the Nation the Biden administration has shown it's committed to getting the hostages home. Hannah Siegel is the niece of Keith Siegel, who's been held hostage by the militant group for more than 6 months. Hamas released a video of Israeli hostages over the weekend, including Keith Siegel. He was kidnapped along with his wife during the October 7th attack on Israel. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says the abortion issue will be sorted out at the state level. During an interview on NBC's Meet the Press, McConnell said he doesn't think a national abortion ban would even be able to pass.
I don't think we'll get 60 votes in the Senate for any kind of national legislation.
Democrats have made abortion a top campaign issue heading into the November elections as states across the country have implemented strict abortion laws following the end of Roe v. Wade. Taylor Swift is smashing records once again. The singer's latest album, The Tortured Poets Department, is the first album in Spotify's history to surpass 1 billion streams
investment
in a
manager
single
for
week.
Capstone Wealth Management. Hey, I've been through the early 1990s bond market implosion, the late 1990s stock market melt-up, the 2000 to 2002 dot-com crash, the rate hike scare in the mid-2000s, the great financial crisis, the pandemic-induced 2020 collapse, the inflation madness, and, of most recent memory, the 2022 bear market. You know what all these have in common? We helped people just like you navigate their finances through. Hey, my boys say I'm old, but I say I'm battle-tested. Not only that, but I've seen the underbelly of Wall Street, and I know how to call a turd a turd. Sometimes the best investment is the one you don't make. But without experience, how would you ever really know? I can help. I've been blessed to work for a lot of people who have entrusted tens of millions of dollars of their hard-earned capital to me and my team. When you become a part of the Capstone family, you are treated like family. If you'd like to see how we can successfully manage your money and to find out if there's a fit, let's start a conversation. The best way to do that is to shoot us an email. info@careformywealth.com.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Spear, a licensed agent with Litchfield Insurance Associates here in Beaumont. A large portion of Americans don't have life insurance or don't have enough. Whether you need a temporary policy, something to help with income during retirement, or making sure your final expenses are taken care of, having life insurance is an act of love and security for your whole family. Having a local trusted agent makes navigating through the sometimes complex world of life insurance so much easier. And I would love to be the one to help you. I'm Kaylee Spear. For your free consultation, people are calling 951-769-0005. 951-769-0005.
Poseidon Valley Tree Service reminds listeners that during these trying times, blood supply levels are critically low, making blood donations essential. Take the time to donate blood today. Visit redcross.org to find a location near you or call 1-800-RED-CROSS and schedule your donation today. This reminder courtesy of Poseidon Valley Tree Service, proudly serving the area with a full range of tree service for over 15 years. For tree trimming and service, mulch installation, and more, call 909-855-0264. That's 909-855-0264. Or visit treeservicelakearrowhead.com. That's Poseidon Valley Tree Service, on the air because they care. 1 in every 5 Americans are affected by a mental health disorder. If you or a loved one is suffering from depression, anxiety, or looking for alternatives to pain management, the time is now to put yourself first and learn about all the benefits of CBD. This special message is from Highway 138 CBD. For any questions or for all your CBD needs, stop in at 235 East Palmdale Boulevard, where they serve a wide variety of high-quality products. Call today, 661-944-9746. For Highway 138 CBD, they're on the air because they care.
Feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back. You guys are listening to Whatever Works on KCAA 1050 and Express 106.5 FM. I'm your host, Sam Works.
I'm Kyle Kerrigan.
And tonight is going to be a little fun, a little spontaneous. We're actually going to be interacting with you guys. You guys are going to be interacting with us. We are going to be giving away a pair of movie tickets to the Harkins movie out here in Redlands. First half of the break, we'll do some trivia questions, and the first caller that calls in and gets the answer right will win those tickets. And then we'll also do one the second half of the show. Super excited. So yes, you guys listen to Whatever Works on KCAA. We do have a new board op. His name is also Joe. We got a lot of Joes here in the studio.
Yeah.
But we seem to